Back to the No Morning Show here on TTT. We are live in studio. We have our live DJ here, Raucous. We have Carrie sitting looking all fantastic, and Ika just looking swanky. But we have to get into the people's business, so we're going to be speaking with Independent Senator Maria Dillon Remy to talk about this 6-6 deadlock and the legislative changes made in the Parliament. Of course, and as an independent senator, she sits in a position where she can help the government or not help the government if the independent bench decides to vote in favor of something. But let's look at what's happening in Tobago and the role that she plays as an independent senator in treating with the issue. Good morning to you, Mrs. Dillon Remy.
Good morning, Natalie. It's good to be with you all now.
Yes, thank you so much. Right now. Now is the time.
Yes, now is the time. You know, Natalie, before you start,
yeah,
I was just hearing Julie, and she was my patient. That child is so inspiring. I know nothing about business, and here she talking so confidently about her business. She really inspired me this morning.
Yes.
I loved her.
Well, that's so good. Yeah, Jolie should inspire all of us at 12 years old, really. You know, if we're not inspired, then we really have to take a second look at ourselves. You know, so congrats to Jolie St. John on her business venture there. But Mrs. Dillon Remy, talk to us. So we saw the 6-6 election result on the 25th of January. And now the government has taken a bill to Parliament trying to make some amendments to the THA Act. One, to change the number of seats from 12 to 15. Of course, the opposition is not in support of this. And also for the population, the Tobago population, to go back to the polls. The independent bench, did it support these moves? I think it did. And why?
The independent bench, except one, voted against the bill. I was the first person to lead off the debate, and for these reasons, I did not support the bill. The first reason was that there was no consultation with the 12 duly elected assemblymen. In other words, this was a bill coming before the Parliament, and you already had 12 people sworn in by the president, voted in by the people, and a bill was being brought to the Parliament without consultation with the 12. So that was one. The second thing is that the bill pulled out one clause from the internal self-government bill that is now before the Joint Select Committee of Parliament. And that clause talked about 15 assemblymen rather than 12. There was no consultation with the forum of parties that presented that bill before the cabinet. So no consultation there again. The third thing was that this bill and the moving from 12 to 15 seats, as the Attorney General said, it was to break a deadlock. Now, you move from 12 to 15 just to break a deadlock. You have 13 and you have 11. You jump to 15, but it was said specifically because it came from the internal self-government bill. But that bill, the whole concept of putting 15 assemblymen rather than 12 was an entirely different one. That bill seeks to have lawmaking powers in Tobago. That bill seeks to have Tobago doing far more than it's doing right now. So you will have like a legislature to populate. For instance, right now, in the Parliament in Trinidad, there are different committees and stuff like that they have to populate. People will have to be making laws in Tobago. So it is in that context that the 15 assemblymen in that context it was placed. And it was being pulled out now just to break a deadlock. Again, that did not make sense. And my final point was that you're talking internal self-government for Tobago. You have a bill before the Parliament right now, and you are making a decision, bringing something to the Parliament that does not advance internal self-government for Tobago, i.e., you're not consulting with the people, you're not finding out what the people want, but you're bringing a solution that the Parliament saw, Cabinet saw was good, and they consulted with their legal people, and they saw it was good, and that is what was brought. So based on those reasons, I could not vote for the bill.
Do you believe because you sit as a Tobagonian that it put you in a different, position in terms of looking at the issue? Because as a Tobagonian, you understand fully what Tobagonians want for themselves.
Right. And specifically as it relates to internal self-government, Natalie, it has been going on for a long time. The current legislature, let's say reforming the legislature in Tobago, happened in 1980. So it is 40 years that Tobago has its own Tobago House of Assembly. And as I said, this is a reformation of the assembly because Tobago did have a legislature before. But after we were annexed to Trinidad, Tobago was annexed to Trinidad, they no longer had the legislature. So it is now a reformation of a legislature since 1980. And each time you go, you try to get more self-government, more self-governance. In other words, the 1980 bill was changed, the act was changed to the 1996 Act. And now there's another bill before Parliament seeking more autonomy. So you're seeking autonomy for Tobago, and you are going in a manner that just says, I will just consult people in Trinidad, and that would be it. Or I will just consult with the PNM in Tobago and the people in Trinidad. To me, that was not right.
Right. Well, so we saw last week Wednesday.
I saw it as a Tobago position.
We saw last week Wednesday the Prime Minister finally met with those 12 assemblymen, as you said, and they had these conversations. And coming out of that, the PDP suggested a power-sharing arrangement between the PDP and the PNM. What do you make of that? Do you think it's something the people of Tobago would be comfortable with and would want?
Okay, so many people in Tobago are comfortable with it. Many people in Tobago are not comfortable with it. My understanding of this is not whether you're comfortable or not. The reason being, it's going to be hard. There is no precedent for that. 40 years, we have never had a 6-6 tie. It has only been one or the other ruling. Not only that, but in Trinidad, we have you either PNM or your UNC or whatever adversarial group or different parties. There is no history in Trinidad of sharing at the level of governments. That has worked. For instance, when you did have a coalition in terms of the NER, you did have something in terms of when the DAC, I think in Tobago, joined with when Mr. Robinson when it was 1772. I'm not sure what the name of the parties at the time, but Mr. Robinson joined with the party in Trinidad, the opposition in Trinidad that had the 17. And they formed the government, but as we know, it quickly fizzled. So we don't have a history, and it's going to be difficult.
How do you propose that this deadlock should be broken?
I do think that they should seek to work something out. And this is what I have said, and this is what I think should happen. It's not going to be easy, but I think it's possible. You can meet with people who are, let's say, independent thinking and would look at Tobago first and put something that is there in the interim until such time as we go back to the poll when the self-government bill is passed in Parliament. They will have to go back to the poll at that point in time.
And let's talk about the self-government bill. Let's talk about the self-government bill that has been languishing in a joint select committee for so long. It's been in the Parliament since 2016. What do you think the holdup is?
It came in 2018. Apparently, it went to cabinet in 2016, but it came to the Parliament in 2018. Yeah. It's a complex bill, Natalie, and that's all I would say. And therefore, they have been going around. They have been consulting with different people about the bill. And yes, it has been a long time, but they are, as far as the government is concerned, it is being sped up at this point in time.
Do you believe that this is something Tobago will be able to get before this government comes out of office or before their constitutional term ends?
Yes, and that is one thing I think that if the people in Tobago, the 12 of them work together, they can fast forward, they can push that bill to be, because you need both government and opposition for that bill to be passed, because you require
it needs a 3/5 majority.
The constitution will be changed, yes. And as you know, right now, what is happening is that the UNC has said they're not supporting anything that the PNM brings that requires a constitutional majority. So if you have both parties in Tobago indeed coming together as the 6-6 has afforded them, they have, I think, much more possibility of getting the Parliament in Trinidad, because they have to convince the opposition, because the government has already brought the bill. They have to convince the opposition and enough independent minds within the parliament to vote for that bill.
But do you think it's something we'll be able to accomplish, considering how adversarial the politics is? And we see the PDP and the PNM don't ever seem to be on the same page. Do you think that they can come together in the interest of Tobago to get that autonomy bill for Tobago passed?
Well, naturally, when the bill that is before the parliament right now was brought by the PNM, Mr. Orville London, Hochoy Charles, and I think there was one other person, I'm not too sure, one other group, I'm not too sure which group it was. So in other words, they sat together and decided that they were going to bring a bill. It was debated in the House in Tobago and then brought to the parliament in Trinidad. Those people are very opposite in terms of how they think, but they put away the things that divided them and put Tobago first in order to bring this bill. It is the first of its kind that is being brought where two parties in Tobago are saying that this is what we want.
It's not the first
Prior to this, it has been either one or the other.
It's not the first we're seeing you breaking rank with the independent bench. When the government brought the changes, the amendments to the procurement legislation, you broke rank as well, and it caused so much talk in the population about whether or not, you should have supported, the government in the Procurement Act. But this time, you withheld your support for the reasons that you pointed out. No consultation with the 12, pulled out one clause, the 15, which was meant for something different, and it does not advance internal self-government. Why did you, how were you able then to not support this, but to support the Procurement Act, which seems to have been on the other side of the coin, where most people were saying, no, something was flawed about it?
Okay, Natalie. As an independent senator, I was put in the parliament to look at the things in the way that I saw it.
Yeah.
The bill was brought to the parliament. In other words, I'm not under a whip, whereas the opposition and the government senators are. So when the bill was brought, there were significant amendments that were made in the House at the time of the committee stage. Amendments that were put forward by independent senators. In my understanding of it, Natalie, they had made sufficient changes for me to vote for it. And that is all I would say.
Okay. All right, Senator Dillon Remy, thank you so much for speaking with us this morning. And I really do hope that Tobago can get its internal self-government, because the people are asking for it.
Thank you, and I hope we do.
Yes.